it's lovely to see you, actual people. So thank, and let's just begin with a sound of a bell, because I'm going to just introduce bell partly for myself to just ground myself and establish myself in mindful breathing. So I'd like to invite you to do the same. This is this mini bell. I don't know if it will work, because of the sound tends to get clipped, but it's a bell that we use to just stop and come back to our breath. So I'll just invite a sound, and whether you hear a long sound, if you don't imagine a long sound, but just let the sound remind you to come back to yourself, to your body, to where you are, and to breathe and to just touch base with yourself. Breathing in, I'm aware of my body. I'm aware of myself. Breathing out, relax my body. I relax my mind. If we feel in touch with the in-breath and out-breath throughout this session, it can be a very good basis for benefiting from the session. And I want to also make that one of the main points that I could offer to contribute to my experience of deep listening, that if we can stay in touch with ourselves when we are present for somebody else, gives us the best opportunity to really receive and hear what the other person is saying. Even when our intention is to kind of go out to the other person, and because we really want to listen, but we lose touch with ourselves, we can sometimes get, we lose a certain stability, a certain groundedness, and we may not, we might miss things. So it's one of the other things I wanted to emphasize. In Plum Village, where I live, we have something called Dharma sharing. It's where we talk about the practice. We talk about how we're applying mindfulness practices and the teachings on love and understanding, and as per Buddhism, as per our teacher Thich Nhat Hanh, and we see how we apply them to our life. And sitting in that circle, one person shares at a time, and while that person is sharing, nobody interrupts them. And we are invited at that time to give all our attention to listening to that person, and we're sat in a circle. Whether it's one-to-one or whether it's a circle, the deep listening is the basic practice of communication. Of course, along with deep listening comes loving speech. They go hand in hand. So we have so if it's your turn to talk, you speak the truth, you speak from your heart, but you're also mindful of the impact your words will make on the other person. So you're skillful in what you say. Deep listening and loving speech is the title of one of the fourth of the 5 mindfulness trainings, which is a kind of global ethic that Thai developed to offer to the world for less violence, for a more sustainable, ecological, less violent and happier world, and also for personal freedom. We know that if we did not listen well to someone, we lost an opportunity, and we maybe hurt that person by our lack of listening, our lack of ability to listen, so we can experience regret. So if we've also had that experience that we lost an opportunity, we want to cultivate the art of deep listening. And it is something, it's not just something you either have or you don't. I guess, of course, part of it can come through how you experience being listened to as a child. Were you taken seriously, and some sort of strategy maybe you developed early on that is still operating in you to make progress, to be successful, to be able to navigate the world. And if deep listening was part of that, maybe you're blessed with a good foundation. It's already part of your way to be, that you have that skill. But for some of us, maybe we had developed other attributes more, and deep listening is not necessarily taught in schools, you see. So it's something that it could be taught, and I've witnessed it being taught in a Buddhist school, actually, in England, whereby there is this respect given to the person that is speaking. The person that's speaking knows they are safe to talk. So this ties in with this trust that we've been talking about. When the person trusts that they are in a safe place, and that they're being truly listened to, and there's not going to be a judgment, then they feel, oh wow, I can really share, and I don't have to hold back. And it gives permission for people that are that maybe otherwise would not share, to share. When I go back to the experience of my Dharma sharing groups that I mentioned, the circle sharings, often we get people with social anxiety saying, I didn't think I would share, but they felt safe in the circle to share. And often they share exactly about this aspect of feeling safe to be able to share. So I began by saying, tuning into yourself in order to be truly present, to listen. Listening as an art, listening as something we can cultivate. And it ends with, the foundation for me is that to really offer my best for deep listening is if I can have being present for myself and knowing what it means to listen to myself, listen to my body, tuning into what is going on, be able to recognize subtle things, maybe subtle voices in my head saying, maybe less subtle voices saying different things, and acknowledging and saying, I hear you there, you have a reason to be there. And this learning to listen to ourselves can be a really powerful kind of foundation to being able to listen to others. So if you've not tried that, I recommend it. But ironically, we somehow are much better at listening to others than ourselves. If you imagine you have a friend in need who really trusts you and you love them, and they're having a difficulty, you stop everything you're doing, you make sure you have time, and you set aside a time to really be there for them. Maybe you also make the space nice. You have a cup of tea, and you make sure the conditions are good. And even if the conditions are not good, with your concentration, you can overcome the conditions outside to really pay attention to the other person, because you know it's important, you want to be there for them. And if we can be a friend for somebody else, it means we can also be a friend to ourselves. And you can apply, if you want to know how to listen to yourself, just think of how you do with a friend who is in need of your kind attention and listening, and you just simply turn it in on yourself. So that's just a tip in case you've not experienced that before. Just to turn it all around to yourself and say, now I apply that same love to myself, of really tuning in to what is going on for me. When we are still, we are able to feel our stability. When we are still, we can actually notice the subtlety of the breath in and out. And if we cannot connect with our breathing, it may, and recognize, oh yes, here is my body, here I am. It may be there is some noise going on, some background noise in ourself. So it may be a sign that we could use the time very well spent to establish ourselves in a more quiet, still place in ourselves, if we want to offer that presence for somebody else and learn to and be there for them, to listen to them. Of course, I'm sure you're all imagining, we all know the why of deep listening, like, but it's important to also double check what is our motive for being here for this person. I mentioned the case of a friend, but it may not be a friend that we're being asked to listen to. And it can be many different situations. And I know Thomas is going to speak to some examples that he has from his work. And we may have questions applying it to our particular situation and kinds of people we're listening to. But even whoever it is, if we apply the same principle as we would to a friend, we won't go too far wrong. In the sense that we want to check what our motivation is. Are we here to we have an agenda, right? An agenda to get some sort of result from this person. And if that is the case, we have to be very careful with that and try to put that aside in order to be able to listen listen well, because we may get information that changes our perception, and we get a deeper understanding of the situation. So this is something we have to be very careful with, because if we have if we're too focused on our agenda, if you like, we might not really be able to listen so much to what the other person has said. We may have experienced being in a situation where the person is maybe sharing, and we're already formulating what it is we want to share back, or what it is we want to ask or suggest. And that is tricky, because, as I said, it can prevent us from really being present for the other person. So how to put that down and just be there for the other person. And that actually requires a bit of trust, because we are somewhat programmed to think, how to argue things, and how to, like, we hear this and then we have our thing to say, and to trust that we don't have to formulate anything. We're just here, our intention is just to listen, and we trust that listening will reveal, and what we need to share will be in direct response to the present moment of hearing, to what is truly being needed at that time, and not what we formulated prior to the meeting, etc. Of course, there will be some things that you've prepared and you share, and there will be time for that, and you trust for that. I think also, when I think of the why of listening, our teacher has always said we listen in order to understand, in order to truly understand what is going on for the other person. And this level of listening that we're talking about can also bring quite a deep change in the other person, in terms of trust, in terms of safety, and that person may share things that they otherwise would not share. So we can get more information. And by listening in this way, we also give the other person a chance to, maybe because they get to express something which is potentially causing them some suffering, in the expression of it and the feeling that they've been heard, it might not be that you agree with them, but you show that you reflect back your understanding, that you've heard them and witnessed their pain, their feelings. You maybe guess how they're feeling, if they're thinking that kind of thought that they're expressing, but you give them a sense that you really heard them and you respect them as a fellow being, a fellow human being, and you understand their situation. Christiana Figueres is actually coming to Plum Village in a couple of days, and she's often talked about how she was able to get the agreement of 195 countries through deep listening, through really making sure that the other person knew that she got their situation, the compromises that they may have to make if they were to follow the agenda that was requested for stepping back on fossil fuels, etc., and maybe the political difficulties they were in. When somebody feels very understood, they're much more open to looking afresh themselves and looking for a different way. So often we will say, even you're hearing wrong perceptions, even you're hearing unskillful speech, even if it's somewhat directed at you, you stay in touch with your compassion for the other person, because you know it's maybe their one chance to really, it's the first time they've been listened to so well, and they're having a chance to really get something off their chest, we say in English, and having done so, there can be much more space for possibility. So your compassion allows you to not be knocked over by some of the unskillfulness that you may hear or some of the wrong perceptions, but you're listening at a different level, not to the thinking, you're listening to the person's true being and situation, how they are in a situation. I think I've already shared a fair bit. I think mostly, I want to say deep listening gives us an incredible opportunity to establish a really good working relationship with somebody, and whereby you have a good ground, and it also provides the ability to really know from the base what is really the situation, and not just be talking at maybe a less deep level about what is really going on for each other. And more fundamental change can come with that. But in terms of technique, the bit that I'm offering is staying in touch with your compassion, staying in touch with yourself, staying in touch with your body, your breath, being present to yourself. And that is automatically provides a space where you're going to listen at a deeper level than normal. And so that is something to try. That is something to experiment with. Yeah. If you listen in the other way, where you're all ears, if you so to speak, and you're not really in touch, you can go so far, but you get tired. You get tired quite quickly. You can't take after a certain point. But the other thing is that the other person they appreciate that you really listened. You were all ears. But when you're really embodied as you're listening, they feel that too, and they really respect and feel they maybe want to hear from you more, because they felt that stability of presence in you as you were listening. And you weren't getting swayed this way or that way, agreeing or disagreeing. You see, even agreeing is not necessarily what they're looking for. That you just agree with everything they say, but that you stay stable, equanimous, that you're non-judgmental, you're not, yeah. One last thing to say is when checking for motivation, when you're in a situation, is check what if there has been a conflict, see if you've got a particular side that you're taking, see if you have some sort of desire to punish or to blame or to make somebody, you want to force them to express regret. You should be sorry as you did this. Just to let that go and clear the space for the listening. So recognizing what is going on. I'll stop there because I think I've gone over time, and I'm not sure. Soledad. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much, Brother